can we expect the market to head in the coming days and weeks? Well, in this video, we're going to be assessing exactly this. We're going to be breaking down what's happened in the previous week within the US market and where exactly we can expect this to go. We're going to be looking at technical setups for some of your favorite stocks, and these, of course, include stocks such as SOFI, PLTR, Robinhood, Google, AMD, OSCR Health, Warner Bros, iPoint, Intel, Micron, NVDA, Broadcom, whatever that one is, Supermicro, Applied Digital Corp, Grab, PayPal and BP. Now that was a lot, and there is a lot of stocks to be going over. So obviously these technical setups are going to be very brief. I'm just going to be going over if I think they're good or bad and basic terms why. So in this video we're going to be going over all of these metrics, and to start this off we're going to be looking at Shiller's PE. Now this is a massive cause for concern in my opinion within the US market. Currently we are currently at 38.4, which when you look back at historical standards, that is incredibly high. However, for the last couple of years now, if we look on a 5-year or even a 10-year basis, we are seeing Shiller's PE consistently rising. So it is something in which is probably quite natural at this point, but it is still certainly a cause for concern, and CEO confidence isn't as high as it should be. We're seeing tariffs start to actually become implemented now, so there's certainly a lot of risk in the market currently. Furthermore, on a fear and greed index, we are now at 75, which obviously indicates that there is a lot of FOMO priced into the market currently, which is obviously where a lot of the money is made within the US markets, of course. So it's definitely something in which I'm glad to see. However, I'm still concerned that this isn't massively sustainable. Looking at the previous week, we've seen that the stocks have been relatively positive, especially some of the large caps. However, there is still a lot of red, certainly within the healthcare sector. Looking here at the volatility index, also known as the VIX, this is currently at 16.4, so no cause for concern there. In my opinion, we've seen gold steadily rising, but it's going sideways now for a month or two. Oil has obviously fallen since the Iran crisis and is now going sideways, which is ideal. And if we do look here on the S&P, we can see here that this has now obviously broken out of this scissor pinch, and we are now steadily climbing, obviously well above, going into all-time highs now. So obviously we're seeing stocks hit all-time highs now, especially the ETFs like the S&P and the Nasdaq. So it's fair to say that we are getting into definite FOMO territories, but also very overvalued territories in my mind. And to sum the news up for last week, retail spending in the US was better. I believe inflation was worse, especially in the UK. I'm not massively sure about the US on that side, but the UK inflation was bad, which obviously speaks levels for the global economy in a sense, obviously not to a massive scale, but we're seeing articles such as Trump pushes for higher EU tariffs, which is obviously going to be detrimental for where the market is going to head in the coming weeks, because obviously when he's throwing these tariffs on these Southeast Asian countries like Thailand, Vietnam, people don't really seem to care because it's not that important. Do they really have much implication as to what they do within the US? No, not at all. But when we see EU threats, EU tariffs, then this is certainly going to be something in which will just have a massive knock-on effect, because EU-US relations need to be strong, because there is intrinsic links between the two. Obviously, you've got ASML on the semiconductor side, you've got Novo Nordisk on the healthcare side. We need good relations, and we don't want tariffs. I mean, that's just the European side. Then obviously you've got Tesla's, Apple products trying to be sold in the EU. It just gets messy. However, with that being said, I'm actually almost convinced that now people are very much so bored of tariffs, and any more tariff news is almost brushed off. It's like, whatever, we're bored of this now, which is ideal to an extent. However, it's certainly a bit concerning, because it kind of shows where the mindset of the retail investors are. They're not in fact too concerned about the macros anymore. It's now just obviously a competition. You buy in, you're my liquidity, I take your money when I sell out. That's all that trading is seen as these days. It's just a way of making money. It's not a way to track the economy in which it has historically been. So that's essentially where I think the US market is currently, and what I imagine will be going forward with. But again, cause for concern with overbought territories. And if we do actually look here at Bollinger Bands, we can see that the US market is now moving towards the 20-day SMA, which indicates that we are actually heading into a more sustainable area for growth, which is good, because for a short while, for a week or two, we were looking to be very much so overbought, and now we're looking as if we're going to close up onto this 20-day SMA and then start to climb up again from there potentially. But I do need to stress, this is not financial advice and it should not be taken as such. So now we're going to be getting onto some individual stocks. We're going to be looking at the setups, the technical setups, and where exactly we can be expecting these to go. But again, I'm not telling you to buy any of these stocks. This is just my own opinion. So to start off here with SOFI Technologies, we're seeing some nice fair value gaps forming underneath the current price here, and we're bouncing off of them and jumping up. So yeah, again, incredible. We are obviously starting to look somewhat overbought, but it's starting to again close off towards the 20-day SMA. Today hasn't been an ideal day for SOFI. It's not the worst day. It's a Friday. There's people taking money out of the market to gain interest over the weekend, especially big money, because why would you keep your money in stocks over a weekend? It's not making you any money. If you've got big money, you might as well take it out and gain some interest. So that's potentially what we've seen today, late markets for sure. So SOFI, it looks incredible. It's doing absolutely amazing. It's above all of its SMAs, and it's going to be pushing on to all-time highs relatively shortly. I've actually got a SOFI video coming out shortly, and I think this stock looks massively undervalued for this year's growth. Palantir is set up in a really nice way. It's well above all of its SMAs, of course. On the Bollinger Bands, it's looking to be overbought now, so I wouldn't be entering at these levels. I expect it to slow down a bit, but it's Palantir. You never know when it's actually going to slow down. It is looking overbought now, according to all of the analysts, but from here, you could realistically expect these analysts to start raising price targets. However, with Palantir, I would be amazed if they did, because it's at 5 to 600 PE. It's massively overvalued. But for me, I struggle to warrant a long-term position in this stock. Well, long-term I do, but I'm a short-term trader, right? So I use this momentum. I see these indicators and I'm like, right, I'll get in here. For me, I don't care about the company. I care about making money, which is what we should all be concerned about. You know, you shouldn't fall in love with a company. You should fall in love with the fact that you could buy here and make probably like 200-300 times 200-300% of what you put in. So for me, Palantir looks nice. It's certainly overheating in my opinion, but it always is, so we just ignore it. So now moving on to Robinhood. So this stock is looking to be in a bullish position, of course. I mean, you didn't need me to say that. You can see that. However, looking here on this last day, which is Friday, we have seen quite an interesting candle form. This is really not what you want to see for long-term prospects. So we've seen the price jump right up and then close straight back down. So again, for me, Robinhood was really struggling to break through this $100 level, and once it finally did consistently, this is now certainly looking to rally. However, it is certainly a cause for concern again. It's starting to look relatively overvalued on a PE basis, not on a historical PE basis, but for a current PE basis. It's well above all of its EMAs, and if we do look at a Bollinger Band, it is certainly overvalued. So potentially next week, I think this, along with SOFI, will potentially move sideways towards the 20-day SMA. Google is set up currently for a potential buy. However, they do have all of their Google Chrome court hearings in the next couple of months, which is definitely going to send this stock volatile as hell. So for me, it's certainly concerning. However, this does look set up in exactly what I look for in a stock. So it's undervalued according to the majority of analysts, and the 50-day EMA has crossed over and above the 100-day EMA. Furthermore, it's also closing consistently and well above the 150 and 200-day EMA. So for me, this looks incredibly great. However, I'm still concerned. I'm debating a position in it, but this is looking exactly what I like to see within a stock. It's gone sideways, and now it's starting to close consistently above these indicators. For me, and furthermore, it's undervalued. For me, this is looking really nice, but is definitely concerning again. So AMD, Advanced Money Destroyer, is doing incredible. However, they have certainly slowed down towards the tail end of this week, which was to be expected. If we look on the Bollinger Band here, it was certainly overbought, consistently for 3 days. So I think, again, we can expect this to potentially move sideways slightly next week, but I still think this stock is going to absolutely rally as more analysts like HSBC start to put this stock as a undervalued stock, of course. So we've seen HSBC double their target from $100 all the way to $200. And again, analysts do not like to be wrong at all. So these analysts down here, minus 40%, are going to start to think, right, well, we look stupid right now. We need to start to raise this price target in accordance to what the price is actually doing. And as that happens, a lot of FOMO is priced in. People start buying in, and this stock just continues to rally. So the next level of resistance for AMD is all the way up at the 164 range. That's where I've marked it, and it's just passed through in this last week through the resistance of 148. So Oscar Health is an example of what exactly could fail within this current setup and system in which I have. So if we look here, this stock looked to be massively overbought. I didn't actually buy into Oscar Health. It was looking consistently overbought, and then I was thinking I will buy in as this closes up to this 20-day SMA, because this is volatile as hell right now. However, it just fell straight through the 20-day SMA. It fell through all of its EMAs. So essentially, there is a lot of selling pressure within Oscar Health currently. However, I still think long-term, this stock is amazing. So for a long-term play, it's certainly still a great idea. But for me, I'm going to wait until these the price closes consistently above these EMAs and looks to be more sustainable. Warner Bros. Is a stock in which I'm approximately 20-30% up on right now. It's done incredibly well for me. Today we've seen a lot of selling pressure within this stock. How I say a lot, it's hardly been anything. It's still looking incredibly strong. According to the analysts, it's incredibly undervalued, and it's just got a perfect setup in my opinion. On the Bollinger Bands, it's certainly overbought now, so I can expect this to move sideways from here. However, it might not. It might just continue to rally, and I wouldn't mind that personally, because this is not a long-term hold for me. This is a short-term momentum trade, and it's doing incredibly well. EyePoint Pharmaceuticals, according to the analyst, potentially has a 552% upside. So if you're wondering if I put that in the thumbnail, I don't know yet, then that's why, because this stock is absolutely incredible. So looking here, it's just broken out of this short-term regression trend. It's looking incredible. On the Bollinger Bands, this is exactly where I would actually look to potentially buy in. I've just closed down the wrong thing there, but we're just bouncing off of this 20-day SMA consistently, and you can probably expect this to now close all the way up near the $11 range. So I actually bought this around the $10 range here, and for me it's something which I'm going to hold for a couple of months. Obviously it has inherent risk. This company's been around for quite some time. However, it isn't actually in profit. If we look at its PE, it's at a -4 PE, so it's not awful. When they do break profit, it will be ideal. However, right now it's still not breaking even. So looking at these EMAs, it looks set up for exactly what I would look for. So again, an amazing opportunity within the stock, but I'm not telling anyone or anything, whoever's watching this, to be buying any of the stocks mentioned. One stock in which I am closely watching again is Intel. So this is looking really nice again, but it's something in which I do still have concern for. So this is really early days for me to be saying I'm going to buy. I do have this stock, but it's a very, very small position. This is something in which I am watching very, very closely. Again, bouncing off of these 20-day SMAs. So it looks quite sustainable. I would prefer to wait a week or two to see if this momentum is more sustainable for long-term growth. But right now it looks incredible on a setup, but the analysts don't actually think this stock looks to be something for a good buy-in for this year's growth. Micron is a company in which I was quite heavy on. I am now out of it since it passed through its 20-day SMA on its Bollinger Bands. For me, this company is very much so oversold right now, and quite unfairly. I think it's a knock-on effect from ASML's earnings, which were really not ideal, and obviously being a ASML customer, this stock is just going to see the knock-on effect from this. But again, they had incredible earnings on, when was that, June 25th. They were absolutely phenomenal. It was a triple beat. They just looked to be set up for great growth going forward, and then it just fell down from there, and I thought it was just incredibly unfair. For me, I will be buying back into this position when I think it's more sustainable, but for right now, it's definitely one to stay away from. So we've seen it just bounce off of this 50-day EMA here, which is actually quite sustainable. If it falls through this, then this will just continue to fall and fall and fall. But if it does manage to consistently climb from here, which I think it might do, because again, it's a great company, its trailing and forward PE is half of where it currently is. So, or the trailing is where it is, and the forward is half of where we are. Sorry if that was confusing, but it just looks to be set up in a great place right now. But on a technical chart basis, it's something in which I have a lot of caution for. NVIDIA looks absolutely incredible. It's trading above all of its EMAs. You don't really need me to say anything about NVIDIA, to be honest. The price targets are currently looking favorable, apart from the minus 42% downside, which I would love to know who actually prices NVIDIA in at $100 for this year's growth. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. On the Bollinger Bands, it's looking relatively overbought consistently. However, I would still say this looks sustainable because of this momentum. You could probably expect this to move sideways next week. However, realistically, it will probably just continue to rally if the macros go in its favor, as of course, NVIDIA being the largest company in the US currently is going to be affected by any macro news, because people selling ETFs, people buying ETFs will have a knock-on effect to NVIDIA. AVGO or Broadcom, I mean, this is another company which I've been in now, and it's looking absolutely amazing. The setup is great, the momentum is incredible, and the price targets are also relatively favorable. So the average is currently a 5% upside, with the maximum being a 41% upside, and there's a downside of a potential 25% according to the analyst. But I still think analysts are going to start to increase their price targets on Broadcom. On a forward PE basis, they look really sustainable again, so it's a company in which I'm happy to be buying. On a Bollinger Band, again, it's looking to be in a relatively sustainable position. So for me, Broadcom looks to be set up in a really nice position. Supermicro is a company in which I'm also in. So this company recently closed into a bullish crossover and is closing consistently above all of its EMA. On a Bollinger Band basis, this is looking to be relatively overbought again. I mean, all of these stocks are overbought. You got to understand that I'm a momentum trader. This is what I kind of look for. You want the momentum to be on your side. If it was oversold, I wouldn't be buying it. So it looks incredible for a momentum play, and the analysts are actually relatively bearish on this. But for me, I do my own formulas. I've got Graham's formula. I made my own formula. I do a discount free cash flow analysis, and on at least two of those three, I think this stock looks to be massively undervalued. So Applied Digital Corp is a stock in which I'm not in. However, I am now actually wanting to get in. So I looked at this last week, but I didn't make it. It didn't make into the video because I was like, it's a bit boring at the moment. But now it's shot up, and according to the analysts, they're all saying this needs to climb from here. However, I will not be buying in right now. I know what you're thinking. Oh, you're a momentum trader, right? Just buy in. This stock is very much so overbought on these Bollinger Bands right now. This will fall back down at least slightly, and I won't actually buy a position in this company for probably until the end of next week before I can really understand where it's going to head. Because right now, why on earth would you risk some money when this stock could just definitely fall back down from here, because it's certainly overbought. But it is set up in a perfect way. I do wish I got in here. However, again, what was to say at that point that it was going to climb because it was below the 20-day SMA? That's just a risk in which I personally am not willing to take. I'd rather wait for the fundamentals to be there. And you see here, the second it closed above that 20-day SMA, it shot up the next day. Grab is a company in which is doing incredibly well. So this is a Southeast Asian delivery service, food delivery, and they are looking incredibly yummy. Why have I said that? That is an incredibly weird thing to say, but I've said it now, and it's looking incredible. So it's in a bullish crossover since April, but long term it's pretty much consistently been in that. On a price target, all of the analysts suggest an upside, which again is incredibly nice to see. And on the Bollinger Band right now, it's looking overbought. So I'm not holding a position in Grab right now, but I will certainly be looking towards the tail end of next week to see where exactly we could enter a trade within this company. But for right now, it's not something in which I am looking to get into right this second. So we do want to see it consistently close above these highs, and once it does break out, then it certainly will be something to look out for. But again, what's to say it will get there? Only momentum. But why on earth would you buy it right now when that is uncertain? So PayPal is a stock in which I once did a video on ages and ages ago. So I was really bearish, and it did actually fall from then. I think I said it around January, so it did actually fall. Obviously, not because of my video, but that would be funny. Looking here, it's looking like it is going to be set up in a really nice way in the coming, well, weeks. This is too early for me to enter a position because this could just fall straight back down from here. We've seen it before and we might see it again. However, the difference this time is we are just about now in a bullish crossover on the EMAs, so that could potentially be a driving factor for momentum, but I would not buy this at this level. I would wait a week or two for some confirmation. And finally, BP. This is a stock in which was brought to my attention yesterday. Obviously, I know the company, but the stock chart I saw yesterday, and I was like, oh, that is looking exactly what I want to see. However, this company is currently at a minus 77 or 71, according to TradingView PE. For me, that's something which I would not really feel too comfortable getting into a large position into. However, the chart is looking incredible. It's looking as if it's going to start to climb in the momentum, but again, I mean, the majority of the stocks mentioned in the tail end of this video, I am not in. These are just stocks in which I am watching very closely. So in the coming weeks, I could potentially be entering into a position within BP. However, again, I'm still very cautious about their price to earnings. So that's going to be it for this video. I do think the markets are looking set up to be relatively bullish still. We're obviously very dependent on macros and, of course, EU tariffs. If they do really get implemented, then we're going to see big issues, and that will be coming into effect in the next couple of months. So again, a side of caution, but I think the markets are still set up in a bullish way according to the technicals. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you could join the empire, the stock analysis empire, which is my mini empire in which I'm building, then hit a subscribe down below, hit a like and comment what stocks are you watching currently. I'd really like to hear what exactly you're eyeing up. So with that being said, I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you for the next one.